Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense, making some sense out of the nonsense around you. This week we've been in the story of John chapter 8, looking at different aspects of it, challenging you to look at things differently. Uh, Talked about last night when silence is actually mercy. When God refuses to answer you, when he's silent in your demands and your questions because he knows that the way you're judging is the way you're going to have to be judged and condemned and forgiven, and it's important for him to be quiet. He's actually giving you grace, actually being good to you. Now again, this story goes on that these men, they bring this accusation to Jesus, and then they just keep going, right? And Jesus just simply bends down and starts writing in the sand. Now again, Jesus looks like he's uninterested, doesn't care, but he's very active in this whole thing. He's trying to teach. That's where he was at the very beginning of this, trying to teach us things. Sometimes God looks like he's not interested. His silence, right, looks like he doesn't really care about us. He doesn't care that we're struggling or suffering. But we need to pay attention to Jesus. And these men are so caught up and attempting to get Jesus that they're not paying attention to what Jesus is doing. And he's writing in the sand. And if they had paid attention to what Jesus was doing and writing, they probably wouldn't have continued on. But they press the envelope, right? They keep accusing, they keep demanding that he answer them. They force Jesus to have to get up and deal with them. And again, my take on this is that Jesus is offering them grace and mercy, saying, you know what, it's better off if you just leave me alone right here. If we don't go down this road, this is going to be bad for you. Now again, we can argue with it like, hey, listen, these guys are going to have a chance to get things taken care of in their own life, right? So this is just Jesus working. But these men, they could care less. They don't care about the woman. They're just trying to get Jesus, and they're so concentrated on this they're not paying attention to what's going on around them. Jesus is writing in the dirt, in the sand. Do you know that Jesus is writing in the sand today for you? He's writing things that are important, that you need to pay attention to. He's trying to show you things. He's trying to get you to understand things. He's trying to get you to implement things, apply things. I mean, we get so caught up in a situation, we get so frustrated, we get so angry, so worried, so full of fear, so full of anxiety, whatever it is. We get so caught up in something that we're not paying attention to what Jesus is doing around us, what he's writing, what he's trying to tell us around us. So many times that we get so caught up in taking care of somebody, right? We get so caught up in the idea of somebody getting what they deserve that we're not paying attention to what Jesus is telling us all around us. So he's actually speaking through other people. He's actually telling other people things that if for us, giving us information, giving us things that we need to hear. We're so caught up in the accusations we're making, the frustration, the anger, all that stuff, the bitterness, we're not paying attention to what Jesus is writing in the sand. You know what he's writing in the sand? He's trying to remind us, hey, you're not perfect too. You don't have it all together. Hey, you better not be judging people lest you be judged. You better not be condemning people lest you be condemned. You better be looking for understanding. But just like these other men, you and I get to a point where we're not paying attention to what Jesus is doing. We just keep telling him, you got to get him, you got to get him, you got to get him, you got to take care of this. You got to fix this. We're listening to the other voices around us when we have a chance to be cued into Jesus and what Jesus is doing. So again, maybe you're caught up tonight and you want to remove the president. Maybe you want to remove your church leadership. Maybe some of your best friends need to be taken care of. Maybe you're doing all kinds of things and you're just so focused in on the sin of others that you're not paying attention to what Jesus is trying to remind you, what Jesus is trying to do for you. Right? That Jesus is trying to be gracious and he's trying to be like, hey, don't make me judge you the way you want this person to be judged right now, because you're going to be dead or you're going to be disciplined to a high level. So that person that you've dragged to Jesus and you demanded that they get what they deserve, what if Jesus gives you what you deserve? Again, most of us think that our president is a mess and we have it all together and we could do a much better job, right? Maybe not. I had a friend once who, when everybody was talking about New York State and about the governor being kicked out, he just simply reminded people, be careful. Be really careful. You might get what you want. Turns out, he was right. Everybody else was thinking, oh, they can't be worse. The evil's going to go. Sometimes we better be careful. We might actually get what we want. Hey, I'm going to leave it right there for Nightly Nonsense. We'll pick it up tomorrow night as we get closer to the end of this story, right? But again, want to remind you, right, that sometimes God's mercy is being silent when you're demanding, right, that somebody get what they deserve. And sometimes Jesus is trying to talk right in the sand in front of you and trying to get you to get it and understand, hey, you don't got it all together either. Right? Pay attention to what Jesus is writing in the sand around you today. See you next time. Nightly Nonsense.